had been watching the humans for 3 standard months now. As a young diplomat of the species, it was his job to study the newer members of the Galactic Union. The humans were strange creatures. They were soft, fragile, and surprisingly small compared to many species. They had no claws, no armor, no natural weapons of any kind. Most species on station ignored them completely. The space station floated in neutral territory, a massive structure where dozens of alien species came to trade and negotiate. People, were beings who valued logic and careful observation. His mentor, High Arbiter, had spent 40 years studying different species. When Al asked him about the humans, the old had given him an odd look. "Watch them carefully," had said. "They are not what they appear to be." Al did not understand what his mentor meant. The human delegation on station was small, only about 20 individuals led by a female named Commander Laura. She was pleasant enough, always polite during diplomatic functions. The humans smiled often, laughed easily, and seemed genuinely interested in making friends with other species. They were like children at times, excited by new foods and curious about alien customs. Nothing about them suggested danger. That changed on the day they arrived. They were a predator species, tall and muscular with skin and sharp teeth. They had joined the Galactic Union recently, and many species were uncomfortable around them. Their reputation was dark. Whispers followed them about slavery and cruelty, though nothing had ever been proven in Union courts. Al was present when the trade ship requested docking permission. It was routine procedure, nothing special. He was assigned to help inspect their cargo as part of his diplomatic training. The captain, a massive creature named X, seemed annoyed by the inspection but allowed it. The first 3 cargo holds contained normal trade goods, metals, textiles, preserved foods. Everything was documented properly. But when they reached the 4th hold, Al noticed something wrong. The air smelled different. There was a sound coming from behind the sealed doors, soft and muffled. The guards tried to block their path. They claimed the 4th hold contained sensitive biological samples that could not be exposed to outside air. Might have accepted this explanation, but then he heard it clearly. A child crying. He forced the door open despite the protests. What he found inside made his blood turn cold. Cages. Dozens of small cages lined the walls, and inside them were children, young ones from at least 5 different species, packed together in terrible conditions. They were thin, dirty, and terrified. Some had injuries that had never been treated. The smell of fear and suffering filled the air. And in the corner, huddled together in one large cage, were 12 human children. Al recognized them immediately. 3 months ago, a human colony ship had disappeared in the outer regions. The Union had searched for survivors but found nothing. Now he knew what had happened to them. They had taken them. He immediately called for station security. Within minutes, the cargo hold was surrounded by armed guards from multiple species. The captain screamed about rights and legal procedures, but nobody listened. The evidence was too clear. Al watched as the news spread through the station. Different species reacted in different ways. Some were horrified. Others seemed unsurprised. A few quietly suggested that this was an internal matter. Then the humans arrived. Commander walked into the cargo bay with 4 of her people behind her. She moved slowly, deliberately, her eyes scanning the cages until she found the human children. Al expected tears. He expected screaming or perhaps immediate violence. Human emotions were supposed to be wild and uncontrolled. Instead, something far more unsettling happened. Commander went completely still. Her face, usually so expressive and warm, became empty. Her eyes, which had always seemed soft and friendly, turned into something else entirely. Had seen predators before. He had seen hunters from a dozen different worlds, but he had never seen anything quite like the look in that human woman's eyes. She turned to the captain and spoke in a voice that was perfectly calm and perfectly flat. Are the children alive? X laughed at her. He was twice her size, a creature built for killing. They live, little human, for now. What are you going to do about it? Your species is nothing. You have no power here. Did not respond to him. She simply turned away as if he had not spoken at all. She walked to a communication panel on the wall and entered a code. Then she spoke a single sentence. This is, children confirmed alive. Execute Protocol 7. That was all. No threats, no demands, no emotional outburst. Just 7 words spoken in a voice without any feeling at all. Al found in the observation deck an hour later. The old was staring at a display screen that showed the space around the station. I do not understand, Al said. The humans are not reacting the way I expected. They are not crying or threatening. They are just quiet. Why are they so quiet? Turned to look at him, and for the first time in all the years Al had known him, the old diplomat looked afraid. Because they have already decided what they are going to do, said. The humans are not debating or planning. They made their decision the moment they saw those children. Everything now is just procedure. What decision? What are they going to do? Before could answer, an alarm began to sound throughout the station. Al looked at the display screen and felt his heart stop beating. Ships, human warships, 17 of them dropping out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation around station. They were not large compared to some species vessels, but there was something about their design that spoke of pure, focused purpose. These were not exploration ships or trading vessels. These were weapons. How is this possible? Al whispered. The nearest human fleet was weeks away. They must have started moving the moment that colony ship disappeared, said quietly. They have been searching for their children all this time, and now they have found them. The communication system crackled with a new transmission. A human voice, calm and professional, addressed the entire station. This is Admiral Henry Cole of the United Earth Navy. Station is now under protective lockdown. No vessel will enter or leave until further notice. To the delegation, you have taken something precious from us. We have come to take it back. How this ends is entirely up to you. Stared at the screen full of warships, then back at. What happens now? The old did not answer for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Now we learn why the galaxy should never harm human children. The Galactic Union Council Chamber was the largest room on station. It could hold representatives from over 100 species, and today it was completely full. Word had spread quickly about the human blockade, and everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Sat in the observer section with the other junior diplomats. His species valued learning through watching, and today there would be much to watch. The tension in the room was thick enough to taste. The delegation sat on one side of the chamber. Captain X had been joined by their senior diplomat, a female named Delegate X. She was smaller than the captain but carried herself with cold confidence. They did not seem worried. They were surrounded by Union law and procedure, and they clearly believed that would protect them. The human delegation sat on the opposite side. Ambassador Grace led them now. She was an older woman with hair and calm eyes. Commander stood behind her, still wearing that empty expression that made Al uncomfortable. The humans were outnumbered in the chamber, but they did not seem to notice or care. The Union Arbiter, a being from a species that existed mostly as floating gas, called the session to order. We are here to address the current crisis, the Arbiter announced. The delegation has filed a formal complaint against humanity for illegal blockade and acts of aggression. The human delegation has filed charges of kidnapping and unlawful imprisonment of sentient beings. Both matters will be heard. Delegate X spoke first. Her voice was sharp and confident. The humans have committed an act of war against the Empire. They have surrounded this neutral station with military vessels. They have threatened violence. Under Union law, this is unacceptable. We demand immediate sanctions and the withdrawal of all human forces." Several species in the chamber nodded their agreement. Law was law, after all. The Union existed because species agreed to follow rules instead of fighting. Ambassador stood slowly. She did not raise her voice or show any anger. "They have taken children," she said simply. "Not just human children, though 12 of our young ones are among the captives. Children from 5 different species were found in cages on their ship. They were being transported for sale as slaves." "Those individuals were recovered from unclaimed space," X countered. "Under law, salvage from unclaimed territory is legal property. We have broken no Union laws." The chamber erupted in murmuring. Some species seemed horrified. Others nodded as if considering the legal argument. A few looked away, unwilling to get involved. Al watched Ambassador carefully. She did not argue the legal point. Instead, she gestured to a display screen. "I would like to show the council something," she said. "Not evidence about this specific case, something else, something about my species." The screen lit up with images, old images from Earth's history. Saw wars being fought, cities burning, armies clashing across battlefields. The violence was terrible, worse than anything his peaceful species had ever experienced. "Humans have fought many wars," explained. "We have killed each other over land, over resources, over ideas. We are not proud of this history, but I want you to notice something specific." The images changed. Now they showed different scenes. Soldiers stopping in the middle of battle to help wounded enemies. Warriors risking their lives to rescue children from burning buildings. Entire armies changing direction to save captured young ones. "Throughout our history," continued, "there is one constant, one line that, when crossed, changes everything. We have fought over many things, but we have always fought hardest for our children, not just human children, any children." She paused and looked directly at the delegation. "Your species sees children as property, as resources to be used. You cannot understand why we are so angry because you do not feel what we feel. Let me try to explain it to you." Another image appeared. It showed a small human child, maybe 5 years old, holding a toy and smiling. When a human sees a child, any child, we see the future. We see hope. We see everything we wish we could be and everything we want to protect. Harming a child is not just a crime to us. It is the worst thing any being can do. There is no forgiveness for it. There is no legal argument that makes it acceptable. There is only justice. Admiral Cole's face appeared on the screen via hologram. He was an older man with white hair and kind eyes. Had read his file. The Admiral had 3 of his own. "I want to address the council directly," Cole said. His voice was soft, almost gentle. "I understand that you have procedures. I respect those procedures. The Union exists because we all agree to follow rules, but I need you to understand something." He leaned forward slightly, and somehow his kind eyes became something else entirely. "Those children in the cargo hold will be returned to their families. This will happen today. Not tomorrow, not after weeks of legal debate. Today. If they release them peacefully, this ends peacefully. If they do not, then it ends another way." Delegate X stood up angrily. "You dare to threaten us in a Union chamber. We have conquered dozens of worlds. Your weak species is nothing compared to our military might." Cole smiled, and the smile did not reach his eyes. "They are a peaceful species," he said. "They keep excellent records. Arbiter, would you please share the historical data I requested?" Rose slowly. Had not known his mentor was involved in this. "I have compiled human military history as requested," announced. "The data is disturbing. Humans have engaged in over 15,000 armed conflicts in their recorded history. They have demonstrated a capacity for sustained warfare that exceeds any species currently in the Union. Their casualty tolerance in defensive conflicts approaches total species commitment." He paused, his antennae twitching nervously. "Most relevantly, There are 743 documented instances where humans engaged in military action specifically to recover kidnapped children. In every single case, they achieved their objective or died trying. There are no exceptions. The chamber went silent. Cole spoke again, his voice still soft. We do not want war with we want our children back. These two things are connected. Give us our children and we leave in peace. Keep our children and we take them anyway. The choice is yours. Al watched the delegation. For the first time, they looked uncertain. Captain X shifted in his seat. Delegate X's confident expression had cracked slightly. They were predators, Al realized. They understood other predators, and they had just realized something important. Leaned close to Al and whispered, "Do you see it now? Do you understand?" "I think so," Al whispered back. "They just realized they are not the most dangerous species in this room." "No," agreed. "They are not, and they never were." The Arbiter called for a recess. The delegation huddled together, speaking in urgent whispers. Outside the station, 17 human warships waited in perfect formation, their weapons powered and ready. The clock was ticking. 24 hours had passed since the human fleet arrived. Had not slept. He could not. Something was building in the air around station, a tension that made his carapace itch. Every species on the station could feel it. They had spent the night communicating with their ships were still docked, surrounded by human vessels that tracked their every movement. No one was going anywhere until this was resolved. A human doctor had been permitted to examine the captive children. His name was Dr. Samuel Gray, a specialist in treating young patients. Had been assigned to escort him to the vessel as a neutral observer. What he saw there would stay with him forever. The children were in worse condition than anyone had realized. They had not just been captured. They had been studied, tested, treated like laboratory animals rather than thinking beings. The human children had strange marks on their arms where samples had been taken. Some of them flinched away from any adult who came near them. Others simply stared at nothing with empty eyes. Dr. Gray examined each child carefully, speaking in soft tones, moving slowly so as not to frighten them. Watched the human doctor work and saw something he had not expected. Tears. The doctor was crying silently as he worked, but his hands remained steady and his voice stayed calm. He was feeling everything but letting none of it interfere with his job. When the examination was complete, Dr. Gray wrote his report. Al was present when Commander read it. He had been curious about how she would react. Stood perfectly still as she read. Her face did not change, but Al noticed something small. Her hands, resting at her sides, had formed into tight fists. The knuckles had turned white. A single tear escaped from her eye and rolled down her cheek, but she did not wipe it away or acknowledge it in any way. "The report will be transmitted to the fleet," said quietly. "Admiral Cole needs to see this." "What will happen now?" Al asked. Looked at him, and for just a moment the mask slipped. What he saw underneath was not anger. It was something colder and far more terrifying. It was certainty. Absolute, unshakable certainty about what needed to be done. "Whatever is necessary," she said. Far away a different conversation was taking place. Overlord ruled his species with an iron fist. He had conquered worlds, crushed rebellions, built an empire through fear and strength. When he received word about the situation at station, he laughed. "The humans," he said to his advisors, "those soft little creatures, they dare to threaten us." His senior military advisor, an old warrior named, did not share his confidence. "Overlord, I have studied the human species. They are not what they appear to be." "They are weak," insisted. "They have no claws, no armor. Their ships are small. What can they possibly do against us?" Pulled up files on a display screen. These are records of human conflicts, their own internal wars. The images that followed made even the hardened warriors uncomfortable. Cities reduced to ash. Weapons that could poison entire planets. Armies fighting to the last soldier rather than surrender. Generation after generation of warfare, each more terrible than the last. They do this to each other, said quietly, to their own species. Imagine what they will do to us. Studied the images in silence. And there is something else, continued. Something specific to this situation. When human young are threatened, something changes in them. They call it many things, protective instinct, parental rage, but the effect is always the same. They stop calculating costs and benefits. They stop caring about their own survival. They become something else entirely. What do they become? Unstoppable. Back on station, Al sought out one of the human officers. Her name was Lieutenant, a young woman who served as a translator. She seemed friendly enough, always willing to answer questions about her species. Al found her in an observation lounge, staring out at the stars. "May I ask you something?" he said. "Of course. I am trying to understand your species' reaction to this situation. Among my people, we would handle this through legal channels. We would negotiate, compromise, find a solution that satisfied everyone. But your people do not seem interested in compromise. Why?" Was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was thoughtful. "Do you have children, Al? Young ones of your own?" "No, do not reproduce until much later in our." "Then I will try to explain." She turned to face him. "Humans have a concept we call the protective instinct. It is built into our biology at the deepest level. When we see a child in danger, something happens in our brains. Our thinking changes. Our priorities shift. Nothing else matters except protecting that child." "But these are not your children," Al pointed out. "You have no biological connection to them." "It does not matter. They are children, that is enough," smiled sadly. "We have expressions for this. When someone threatens a mother's child, we say she becomes a mama bear. When a father's child is in danger, we say he becomes a papa bear. Do you know what a bear is?" "A large predator from your yes." "Yes, one of the most dangerous. And that is what we become when children are threatened. It does not matter whose children they are. Human, it makes no difference. A child is a child, and we will protect them all." The communication system chimed with a new message. Checked her device, and her expression darkened. "What is it?" Al asked. "They have made a counteroffer. They will return 6 of the 12 human children. The other 6 will be kept as compensation for the diplomatic insult we have caused them." "And how have your people responded?" Did not answer. She simply pointed out the observation window, looked and saw the human fleet moving. The ships were spreading out, repositioning themselves. They were no longer just surrounding the station. They were forming attack patterns. "There is your answer," said quietly. On the bridge of the lead human warship, Admiral Cole received the counteroffer. He read it once, then set it aside. "Navigation, move us into position Alpha 7. Weapons, bring all systems to full readiness. Communications, send one message to the vessel." "What message, Admiral?" Cole looked at the image of his that sat on his command console. 3 smiling faces, innocent and happy. He thought about the 12 children in that cargo hold. He thought about what had been done to them. "Tell them they have 1 hour to release all 12 children. Not 6, all 12. After that hour, we come and take them ourselves." "And if they refuse?" Cole's voice was ice. "Then we remind the galaxy why you do not touch human children." The message was sent. The clock started ticking. On station, every species held their breath and waited. The hour passed in terrible silence. Watched from the observation deck as the human fleet held position, their weapons glowing with contained energy. They had not responded to the ultimatum. Their ships remained docked. Their delegation refused all communication. On the command deck of the lead human warship, Admiral Cole stood with his hands clasped behind his back. Around him, officers worked in focused silence. Every station was manned, every system ready. Time, Cole asked. 60 seconds remaining, Admiral. Status of rescue teams. Captain Daniel answered from his own vessel. His ship carried the Marines who would board the vessel. All teams ready. We have breaching charges prepared, medical personnel standing by, extraction routes mapped. Casualties. We will take some, paused, but we will get those children out. The clock counted down. 50 seconds, 40, 30. Vessel is powering weapons, an officer reported. So they have chosen, Cole said quietly. All ships engage. What happened next was something would never forget. He had seen combat footage before, simulations and training videos from various species. He thought he knew what space warfare looked like. He was wrong. The human ships moved as one, a coordinated assault that struck the vessels from multiple angles simultaneously. There was no hesitation, no warning shots, no attempt to intimidate. The humans fought like they meant to kill, because they did. The warships were larger and more heavily armed. Under normal circumstances, they might have had an advantage, but these were not normal circumstances. The human pilots flew with reckless precision, taking risks that no sane species would consider. They did not care about their own survival. They only cared about reaching those children. The first ship exploded within 3 minutes. The second followed moments later. Captain X tried to use the station as cover, hiding behind the neutral structure. The humans simply adjusted their attack angles and kept firing. They are insane, Al whispered. They will damage the station. They will not, said beside him. The old was watching the battle with careful eyes. Look at their targeting. Every shot is precise. They are angry, but they are not out of control. That is what makes them so dangerous. It was true. The human weapons fire was devastatingly accurate, hitting vessels while somehow missing the station by the narrowest margins. They were not fighting blind with rage. They were fighting with cold, calculated fury. On the vessel containing the children, alarms screamed through every corridor. The ship shuddered as human weapons tore into its outer hull. Captain X screamed orders at his crew, demanding they return fire, demanding they fight back. But the human assault was overwhelming. Boarding pods detected, an officer shouted. They are attaching to our hull. The first breach came seconds later. Human Marines poured through the opening, their weapons blazing. They moved in tight formations, covering each other, pushing forward with unstoppable determination. Captain led the primary team. He had studied the ship's layout until he could navigate it blindfolded. His only goal was the cargo hold where the children were being kept. Everything else was secondary. Contact left, one of his Marines called out. 3 warriors. Take them down, keep moving. They fought back hard. They were larger, stronger, and fighting on their own ship. But the humans did not stop. When one Marine fell, another took their place. When a corridor was blocked, they cut through the walls. Nothing slowed them down. Medic Brooks followed close behind the assault teams. Her job was to reach the children and provide immediate medical care. She carried emergency supplies, medicines, everything she might need. She had treated wounded soldiers before, but she had never done anything like this. The sounds of combat echoed through the corridors. Weapons fire, screaming, the crash of bodies hitting metal floors. Brooks stayed focused, staying close to her escort, counting the seconds until they reached the cargo hold. Finally, the door was in sight. 2 guards stood before it, weapons raised. The Marines engaged them without hesitation. The fight was brutal and short. When it ended, both guards were down and 3 Marines were wounded. Door is sealed, reported, breaching charges. Wait, Brooks said. The children are right behind that door. The explosion could hurt them. Nodded, manual breach. Everyone on the door, we force it open. 6 Marines grabbed the edges of the door and pulled. Metal screamed and groaned. They pulled harder, putting everything they had into the effort. The door began to bend, then buckle, then finally gave way. Brooks was the first one through. The cargo hold was dark and cold. The cages were still there, still full of frightened children. They screamed when the door burst open, cowering away from the armed figures who entered. Brooks immediately put down her weapon and raised her hands. "It is okay," she said, keeping her voice soft and calm. "It is okay. We are here to help you. We are here to take you home." The children stared at her with terrified eyes. They had been hurt so badly, traumatized so deeply, that they could not believe rescue had actually come. Brooks approached the nearest cage slowly, carefully, showing that she meant no harm. Inside were 3 human children, huddled together. The oldest could not have been more than 10 years old. "My name is," she said. "I am a doctor. I am going to get you out of here. Can you tell me your names?" The oldest child, a boy with dark hair and frightened eyes, spoke in a trembling voice. This is my sister Lucy, and this is Maria." "Hello, hello, Lucy, hello, Maria." Brooks felt tears running down her face but did not stop smiling. "You are so brave, you are so strong, and now you are safe. I promise you, you are safe." Behind her was opening the other cages, freeing children from 5 different species. Each one was scared, hurt, but alive. All 12 human children were accounted for. All of them would go home. Back on the observation deck, Al watched as the last warship surrendered. The battle had lasted less than 20 minutes. The human fleet had lost 2 ships and suffered dozens of casualties. They had lost everything. "It is over," said quietly. "Is it?" Al asked. "What happens now? The Empire will not accept this defeat. They will want revenge." Shook his head slowly. "The Empire is finished. Not because of what happened here today, but because of what will happen tomorrow. Word of this will spread. Every species that they have bullied or enslaved will see that they can be beaten. The humans have not just won a battle. They have started the end of an empire." On the human flagship, Admiral Cole received the report that all children had been recovered. 3 were in critical condition but stable. All 12 would survive. He sat down heavily in his command chair and finally allowed himself to feel the weight of what had happened. Good people had died today. Brave men and women who had given everything to save those children. But the children were safe. In the cargo hold of the vessel, Commander had come aboard. She stood among the open cages, watching as the children were carried to safety. Medical teams surrounded them, providing care, comfort, reassurance. She found Young still sitting where Brooks had left him, holding his sister's hand. "You are Commander," said. "They talked about you. They said you were weak. They said humans were nothing." Knelt down so she was at eye level with the boy. "They were wrong," she said simply. Nodded slowly. "I know. I always knew someone would come for us. I told the others. I told them the grown-ups would come." For the first time in days, smiled. It was a real smile, warm and genuine. "You were right," she said. "We will always come." 3 months had passed since the battle at Station. The galaxy had changed in ways that few had expected. Sat in his quarters preparing the final version of his report for the Elder Council. He had been working on it for weeks, trying to capture everything he had witnessed and learned. The rescued children were recovering on Earth, had received updates through diplomatic channels. The physical wounds were healing faster than the emotional ones. The human government had assigned teams of specialists to help each child, providing therapy, support, and most importantly, love. Some would carry scars forever, but they were surrounded by people who cared about them. Young had become something of a symbol. His picture appeared in human news broadcasts, showing him reunited with his parents. The image of that small boy being lifted into his mother's arms had spread across the galaxy. It showed everyone what this fight had been about. The Empire was collapsing, had been right about that. Word of their defeat had spread quickly, and species that had once feared them suddenly found courage. Rebellions broke out on a dozen conquered worlds. The slave markets were shut down. Overlord had been overthrown by his own generals, who blamed him for provoking the humans. The Galactic Union had held tribunals for the officers involved in the child trafficking. Captain X was sentenced to imprisonment for the rest of his natural life. The evidence against him was overwhelming, made worse by the detailed records the humans had recovered from his ship. Ambassador had addressed the Union Council after the trials. Her speech was short but powerful. "Justice has been served," she said, "but this should never have happened. Children from 5 species were taken, abused, sold like objects. Where was the Union while this was happening? Where were the protections that should have prevented such horrors?" She proposed new laws, stronger protections for children of all species, better monitoring of cargo ships, harsher penalties for anyone involved in trafficking. The proposals passed unanimously. No species wanted to be seen opposing them, not after watching what the humans did to those who harmed children. Al finished his report and read through it one final time. He had tried to be objective, to present facts rather than opinions, but certain conclusions were unavoidable. The humans were not the weak, harmless species that most of the galaxy had assumed. They were not aggressive conquerors either. They were something more complex, more nuanced. They could be kind, generous, curious, and friendly. They could also be absolutely terrifying when provoked. He wrote about Commander, the woman who had gone silent and still when she learned about the children. He described how that quietness was not weakness, but rather the calm before a terrible storm. He wrote about Admiral Cole, the grandfather who spoke gently while commanding a fleet capable of destroying worlds. He wrote about Captain and his Marines, who had fought through a hostile ship without hesitation. He wrote about Medic Brooks, who had walked into danger armed with nothing but medicine and compassion. Most importantly, he wrote about why. Why had the humans reacted so intensely? Why had they risked so much for children who were not even their own? The answer was both simple and profound. It was built into their biology, woven into their culture, fundamental to their identity as a species. Humans protected children, always. He included analysis in the report. The old diplomat had summarized human nature better than anyone. "Humans have a saying," had told him. "The child is father to the man. I believe I finally understand what this means. Everything humans are, everything they have built, everything they are capable of comes from one simple truth. They will do anything to protect their children. They will sacrifice anything. They will become anything. This is not a weakness to be exploited. It is the source of their greatest strength." Al ended his report with 2 recommendations. The first was a warning. It was clear and specific, intended to be shared with every species in the Union. Never harm human children. Never threaten human children. Never take human children. The consequences would be swift, terrible, and absolute. The second was a suggestion. They should seek closer ties with humanity, not out of fear but out of respect. Any species that cared so deeply about protecting the young was a species worth knowing. Any species that would fight so hard for children was a species worth trusting. He transmitted the report to the Elder Council and received acknowledgement within minutes. They would study his findings and make their decisions. He had done his part. A communication request appeared on his screen. It was from Lieutenant, the human officer who had explained her species to him during the crisis. He accepted the connection. "Al," she said, smiling, "I wanted to thank you. Your testimony at the tribunals was helpful. The Elder Council's statement of support meant a lot to us." "It was the truth," he replied. "I simply told the council what I witnessed." "Still, it mattered. I also wanted to let you know something. The boy from the cargo hold, he asked about you. He wanted to know if the nice bug person who helped open his cage was okay." Felt an unfamiliar warmth in his chest. "I am well. Please tell him that. Tell him I hope he is well too." "I will," paused. "You know you are welcome to visit Earth someday. Meet the children you helped save. I think you would find it interesting." I would like that very much. They ended the conversation with promises to stay in touch. Sat alone in his quarters, thinking about everything that had happened. 3 months ago, he had thought he understood the galaxy. He had believed in the power of law and diplomacy, in rational beings making rational choices. He still believed in those things, but he had learned something new. Sometimes, when evil threatens the innocent, rational choices are not enough. Sometimes you need beings who will fight without counting the cost. Sometimes you need beings who will look at children in cages and say no, not acceptable, not ever, no matter what. Humans were such beings. On Earth, Ambassador stood before the Galactic Union Assembly one final time. The delegates from dozens of species watched her with new eyes, some with respect, some with fear, all with understanding. The galaxy has learned a lesson these past months, she said. It is a lesson we hoped never to teach, but since it has been taught, let us make sure it is not forgotten. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from every species present. Humans are a young species. We have much to learn from our elder neighbors. We want peace. We want friendship. We want to build something good together, all of us, for all our children. Her voice hardened slightly. But let us be clear. There are lines that cannot be crossed. There are wrongs that cannot be forgiven. If anyone in this galaxy harms our children or any children, they will face consequences. Not threats, not legal proceedings, consequences. She paused, letting the words sink in. We are kind because we choose to be. We are peaceful because we choose to be. But we are also parents. And the galaxy should know by now what happens when you threaten our children. Al, watching the broadcast from his, nodded slowly. He understood now. He understood completely. The humans had shown the galaxy their true nature. Not monsters, not saviors, but something in between. Beings capable of great love and terrible violence, often in the same moment. Beings who could be your best friend or your worst enemy, depending on how you treated the ones they loved. Mostly, beings who would do anything for their children. And the galaxy would never forget it.